Hey everyone, I'm so happy that you're here with us and hope you enjoyed hearing some of the neat insights and ideas already in the session. We're going to get to some more. Don't you worry about that. I'm so excited with this next conversation because I'm going to be diving in with Mike Foster and talking about some of the things that they are seeing over at Advanced RPO within the hiring space. They support lots of employers that are trying to figure out how to navigate what's going on. They're supporting them with their hiring activities. So they are on the front lines of all these things. And Mike, I'm so glad to be with you here.
Yeah, no, and it's an honor, and I appreciate the invite, and hopefully we have a nice, productive conversation. So very excited to join you here.
Absolutely. Well, we'll let the audience give you a ranking after we're done with this and give you a thumbs up, thumbs no.
All right,
It's going to be a
appreciate
good
that.
one. It's going to be a great
Exciting.
one. Absolutely. So before we get into some of the fun things that I want to cover, like ghosting and some of the other hiring for remote workers, take just a minute and tell the audience a little more about who you are and what you do.
Yeah. So again, my name's Mike Foster. I'm an account director with Advanced RPO. I'm remotely based out of Charleston, South Carolina, originally from the Philadelphia area, which is why you won't hear much of a Southern drawl coming from me. But I've been in recruiting now for over 15 years, of which 12 of those have been with different RPOs in that space, of which 8 years has been managing client delivery recruitment teams. So as an account director with Advanced RPO, my position is really kind of twofold. Is one, I work directly with our clients in making sure that when we come on board that we're providing the best recruitment process, the most efficient recruitment process that's going to result in, hopefully the best candidate, hiring manager, and recruiter experience as well. Then the second part of it is being held accountable to the results of our recruitment teams in support of our clients. So I would be the direct manager of that support team that would support our clients. So a lot of client interaction and management of recruitment teams, and it's something that I've dedicated my life to, and I certainly enjoy it.
Awesome. Wonderful. Well, you and I've had a chance to have a couple conversations over the last year, and every time I walk away with a bigger perspective on things, some new ideas to think about. And even one of those from the conversation that we had a while back with some of your other colleagues, I ended up in the book because it was just that compelling to me.
Awesome.
So I'm so excited to have you here. So let's kick through a couple different ideas, concepts, things that you mentioned that you're seeing in the kind of the front lines, things that we're seeing in the data, and we'll see what the take is there. So the first thing I want to talk about is hiring for remote work. And I know that in 2020 that kind of exploded as a really big focus for employers,
Mm-hmm.
and since then it's kind of settled back a little bit. It's in the headlines almost every day. This company's trying to get people to come back, all that good stuff. But one of the things that popped up in the research we just finished is that 4 out of 10 employers told us that when they're hiring for a position and they mention, oh yeah, by the way, there's an in-person requirement, there's a hybrid requirement, there's something beyond just remote work, that 40% of employers see some sort of drop off or ghosting in there. I'd love to hear from you, the employers you're working with, these different positions that you have this responsibility over. Do you see remote working as like here to stay? Is it not? Is it certain industries? Like what's going on there?
Yeah, definitely. So personally, as somebody who works remote, I hope it's not going away. I do thoroughly enjoy it, but I've been doing it for a long time, even predating the COVID era as well. I think there's going to be a mix. We are definitely seeing more and more clients starting to look at bringing some people back into an office in hybrid, but we're also seeing candidate demand still asking for remote positions. So there's still very much a discrepancy between, I think, what many employers are hoping for and what the candidates' priorities are when they're looking for new employment. I think where it's going to land is somewhere in the middle. I think there's going to be a lot of challenging roles that companies are going to struggle filling, and they're going to have to look to remote roles. I truly believe for the remote roles that have really strong goals or metrics tied to them seem to perform very well from a remote perspective as well. So I think you'll see those positions really kind of start sticking around. But one of the more interesting things that I've actually heard relatively recently is across Advanced RPO and all of our postings across all of our clients, in particular on LinkedIn, we're seeing right now 5 times more applicants to positions that are posted remotely than positions that are posted hybrid or on site. And in some discussions with LinkedIn, to make it even more interesting, is LinkedIn is certainly seeing that the folks who are applying to jobs remotely aren't even searching, looking, or acknowledging positions that have on-site and hybrid. So there are 2 very different candidate pools, with one of them being very much a larger candidate pool at this time. So as I said, it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out, because I think candidates are still demanding the remote work. I still think Companies that are leveraging it have a much easier time in hiring and end up hiring some of the best talent. But again, many companies really, really are pushing to come back on site. So
your insight on the jobs that have a strong set of metrics or KPIs, we can really prove that you're doing this job well or not based
yeah,
on the things you've already laid out. That's a really interesting piece to me, because when we think about, as you said a minute ago, like every company's not the same, and even every candidate's not the same, but every job isn't the same either. Some jobs
yeah,
would be well suited to that, and we know some jobs definitely are not ever going to be remote because you can't drive a forklift remotely
yeah,
or whatever else.
exactly.
But for people who are in other types of jobs, I'm trying to think about where that line might lie, where you can say, okay, you know what, we've got a good enough set of requirements. We know what this person's supposed to look like. We know what good looks like in this, whether they're in person or not. We can really define that well. Then you can actually have more comfort in doing that and feel like if you're getting what you're supposed to be getting, what you're paying for essentially for
Yeah,
those positions. It's a really neat, again, I want to explore that a lot, but
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I know. And I kind of reflect back to, if you go back to 2010, 2011, when remote work kind of gave its first go around of you started seeing companies do it. And I was hybrid actually at the time, working, and the technology just wasn't there. I remember trying to connect to a Zoom meeting at the time or whatever software it was, and it never worked, and kind of fought through it. But there was a lot of trust issues and things like that from employers back to employees and things like that. And right around 2013 and 14, you saw a really big push of getting back into the office. Companies like Yahoo, Microsoft, and things like that were kind of, front runners in the news when it came to bringing people back into an office. And I feel like that back in office kind of culture really spent a good 5 or 6 years pre-COVID of going in that direction, and then COVID turned it upside down again. What I would definitely see as a difference between that time and now is the technology to support remote workers to do what you and I are doing right now and doing it comfortably. It's a world of difference between then, but there still is very much that trust issue with hiring managers and their employees, and the hiring managers that put trust in the people that they're hiring and what they do, and are able to track metrics and track goals and things like that without having to over the top micromanage people, seem to be the ones that are most successful within the remote roles.
There's a great book written years ago, and forgive the title, everybody, but it's not my title. Why work sucks, and it all looks at how Best Buy had started transitioning to this thing they call the results only work environment. That's why your goals thing and your metrics thing
Yeah,
really struck me a minute ago, because they realized at the beginning we have to do this first, otherwise we don't know if we're successful in this or not, and we'll never know.
yeah,
And so instead of just saying, well, we're going to do it because candidates demand it, like, no, it's good for the business potentially if we know the right
correct.
things, we're able to prove those things. So
Yeah,
there's a
and
lot of good
yeah,
stuff in there.
there's a lot of stuff in there. And when you think of good for the business, one of the other interesting things that we're starting to see is people have been working remote for a little while now, and when you're reaching out to them for an on-site or a hybrid type of position, there seems to be a cost to come along with that. And me personally, I've even reflected, if I had to go work into an office or hybrid, what does that cost when you think of commute, when you think of some of the flexibility and things that do come along with it?
Just the
What does
premium
that
on that.
cost?
Yeah.
Yeah. And we are certainly seeing that people are going, well, if you want me to come in hybrid, you got to pay me X. And there's some cost savings to go along when it comes to salary and some additional benefits, because it is a perk when done correctly. So we are certainly seeing that. And then to get back a little bit to your ghosting part of the data that you see, we do see that. What we have been advising our clients, and the clients that have been seeing a really big reduction in this, is the transparency of the location. Put it in the job description right there. This position is hybrid, requires 2 days a week, Wednesdays and Thursdays in the office. And this is what our expectation is of you. People who are dead set on remote work or aren't interested in that, they won't apply. And frankly, they're not wasting anybody's time. What tends to happen when we see the ghosting is clients that want to just kind of advertise to the masses, and when a recruiter gets on the phone, kind of gives them the, oh yeah, this is a hybrid position, they say no thank you. Or it starts off as a hybrid position, then or it starts off as a remote position, then all of a sudden it gets decided, well, no, we want this position to come in to the office 1 or 2 days, and then that's right around offer time, and the person backs out. And you hope that they give you a notice, but in today's world, ghosting is a very common. But you can mitigate much of that by being transparent upfront with exactly what that is right in the job description, and making sure every touch point the recruiter, the manager, whoever's talking to that candidate is saying the same message around what that location is.
So that's a great recommendation for everybody listening into this. Is the transparency piece popped up a couple different ways in the data this time around. So we asked a question of candidates: why are you ghosting employers? And the number one reason is, when I learned more about the job, more about the company, it wasn't for me. And this fits in that bucket, right? That could encompass a lot of things. Oh, like, wow, that manager was a jerk. The recruiter treated me like whatever, right? They weren't friendly. Like any sort of thing that you find out, or like, oh wait, this is a company that sells dumpsters or something like that. I'm not excited about that. And once they get into that, after they've just applied for the jobs blindly on Indeed or wherever else, they realize this is not for me. But this is included in that. When you're like, oh wait a minute, I thought it was going to be remote, it's not. And so for the employers out there listening in, you're thinking about, okay, how do I balance this out? Because we still need candidates, we still need people to do the work that we need. Be open about those things, as you were saying there, Mike. Be open about those things. One of the other areas we're seeing some interest from candidates is be open about the pay. I know some places have to by law, but we're seeing more interest from candidates in other places where it's not required. It may be less common to do that, but there's some interesting data that came out from some economists that were looking at that, and they said, hey, if you're advertising a job that has an advertised pay rate in it, it costs less to advertise that job. It gets a higher click-through rate. Similar to what you were saying earlier about the interest in the remote piece. So there's some things we can do. I'll say to game the system, because that sounds like a negative sort of thing, but there's some things we can do to make it more attractive and appealing to candidates. And it's not creating new things. It's not doing extra work. It's just telling them what you're already going to be doing anyway.
Yeah, no, and I 100% agree. And when you think of transparency, everyone in today's world goes right to the pay transparency conversation. And I think you hit it right on the head. The job posting sites, the advertising sites that you're working with are all ahead of where I think everyone is as far as pay transparency and things like that. So algorithms are driving all of this. The jobs that don't have any kind of pay information in it, unfortunately, you're on page 5. If you put your pay information, all magically you're on page 1 or 2. And that's if you're lucky, you'll get on page 5 sometimes when you don't have it, because what they're also doing is estimating the pay based off of what they consider some market intelligence. So I can speak for one role we were working on that didn't have any kind of pay information, was posted in California, and it got estimated on it. And unfortunately, we found out, was estimated like $80,000 less than what it was paying. So when we realized, why is nobody applying, looked at this job and went, well, we're paying much more than it's actually advertising. So what I have seen, the pay estimates are usually significantly lower than what most employers are actually paying. So it's hurting in the long run by allowing these systems to pay estimates and things like that. And I don't think the pay transparency is going away anytime soon. When you kind of think of the remote hybrid model, we've seen some clients that are nervous of recruiting in New York or recruiting in California, Colorado, where a lot of these pretty strict pay transparency laws are, which is what's driving them to then go, we only want people hybrid in this location. We don't want to go remote, because then we have to advertise pay in certain areas. So it's driving what I would consider probably some bad behaviors.
Unintended consequences, maybe.
Correct. But it's only going to continue to grow from here. I mean, we saw that with the salary ban as it continued to grow throughout the United States. And my word of advice to employers is we've had a lot of time. This pay transparency isn't something that just popped here overnight. Even if it's not in your state where you're working out of, start preparing, start getting ready as if it's going to get rolled out in your state at any time. And one of the biggest challenges for employers, the internal equity. If you go post the position that 5 other people are working in your employer, and you post it for $10,000 more a year than what they're making, you have some retention issues. So
some conversations will be had.
Yeah. So I say start working, get ahead of it, because it's a long process. It's difficult. It's not as easy as just pop some pay ranges on a job description. I think us in recruiting certainly understand that, but it just takes time. So really start looking internally at your organizations and start preparing for it, because it'll help you from a recruitment perspective for sure. And I also think it'll help from a retention issue.
Absolutely. So a quick comment to the audience out there listening right now. If you've already done some of this, you've already started putting some of those pay ranges out there. If you've got a piece of advice or recommendation for the others who either don't have to do that or haven't had to do it yet, but may have to in the future, anything you want to share in the comments here would be super helpful as they're thinking through those things. You heard some good stuff from Mike already, but just share with each other. You're good at doing those kind of things, and that would help them as they're making that own path. Again, as Mike as you just said, not necessarily because you have to, because it's the right thing to do, because it makes your job easier in some cases from a
Yeah.
recruiting perspective, things like that. One
Yeah,
other
and
thing
I
I
would
want
definitely say, if I could just quickly, that like you're not alone
to,
if you haven't gotten to the pay transparency things, and even if it's confusing and difficult, I live and breathe this space, and I'll be the first to admit that I'm learning new stuff and how to handle it every day. Even from recruitment, how do you negotiate offers when they know the salary range? Like there's different things that we're learning and adapting as well. So don't be afraid to ask questions, to partner, to do some research and things like that, because trust me, there's plenty of people that are asking the same question that are in the same exact position as you are.
yeah, I'm thinking about the parallel of we're talking about at some point getting a replacement car for my wife, and like now you can look at all the values online, everything else when you show up there at the lot, right? You know all those things before you ever even look at the car in person,
Yep.
and that has to change it for them. And yet cars still get sold, cars still get
Yeah.
purchased. And so
We're
the
gonna
same kind of
purchase.
transactions
Yeah.
can happen. And it's just, there's more symmetry of information. It's kind of the technical term of that. It's not
Yeah.
just all one person holds all the cards and they'll let you see little glimpses here and there. Now it's a different conversation, and that may be okay long term. It's
Yeah.
going to benefit in some different ways.
Yeah. No, and it's an interesting comparison because what you're seeing is the old days of posting a job posting. You take the exact job description that's 8 pages long and you post it up on monster.com are gone. You really got to look at, there's a job description and then there's a job advertisement. Excuse me. That job advertisement is really no different than your car example right there. Like you're advertising everything about your company, about your process, about where it's located, about how much it pays, and as good as you can get on those advertisement and supplying as much information similar to if you're buying a car. If there's a ding in the car, you put that in the advertisement. You don't hide it, because that's what then in the end when somebody shows up to buy the car and they see the ding, they may not buy it. So really kind of adjusting into a marketing advertising play from a job posting perspective is something that we've been working with a lot of our clients on.
Excellent. All right, so we are getting close here on our time, Mike, and I want to make sure that everybody can reach out and connect after we're done. So if
Yeah.
they want to learn more about what you and the team at Advanced are doing, if they want to connect with you, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, so obviously in the comment section here, I think there's a few people probably from Advance that are listening into this as well, so don't hesitate. But what I would say is hopefully you can see that this is a passion of mine. If you want to just reach out on LinkedIn, connect with me on LinkedIn, shoot me a message and just talk shop. I love it. And feel free to reach out to me. If you're interested in RPO services and things like that, I can certainly get you in touch with different folks around our organization, or just have a conversation to see if it even makes sense for you to explore it. But you can always check out our website, advancedrpo.com. Has lots of information and lots of different materials there for to help make that type of decision. So what I would just say is don't be afraid to reach out, and I'm always open to connect with anybody.
Awesome, wonderful. I'll make sure you're going to be in the comments anyway, but I'll make sure and tag you in the comments so everybody can click through. Let Mike know you heard him on the event today and connect with him on LinkedIn. I know he would appreciate that, and you'll get the benefit of this kind of expertise you're getting here from now on. So there's the benefit for everybody. So Mike, thank you so
Awesome.
much for joining
Thank
me.
you.
This has been a blast. I've enjoyed it. Time goes too fast, my friend.
I know I can go for another hour if you want to.
Goodness. So for everybody else out there, I hope you got some good notes from this, some good ideas from it as well. And I can't wait to see you on our next session.